Money FM 89.3, best of breakfast. Eco Money on Money FM 89.3.
Good morning. Welcome to Eco Money with me, Audrey Seek. As the effects of climate change deepen across the world, products and services with supposed climate benefits such as carbon negative coffee, carbon neutral flights, and net zero beef have increasingly caught on. Such claims depend very much on carbon offsets. But do carbon offset projects necessarily meet set targets? And can the results be reliably measured? Well, research has shown that some of these carbon credits eventually turn into what's called phantom credits and may turn counterproductive in time to come. For more insights on all this, we're joined by Dr. Ruipeng Liu, Senior Lecturer for the Finance Group at Deakin Business School. Thanks for joining us this morning, Dr. Liu.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. So let's dive in with a pretty big question. Carbon offsets are meant to help counteract emissions, but we've seen growing controversy over their effectiveness. So can you tell us why some of these projects could end up being counterproductive?
Yes, indeed. Carbon offsets were designed to reduce net emissions, but sometimes can be counterproductive. One of the major issues is greenwashing. Companies buy carbon offsets instead of actually reducing emissions. For example, a corporation continues high fossil fuel consumption while purchasing carbon credit instead of investing in clean energy solutions. Then company can mislead consumers by marketing their products carbon neutral based on offsets, although they do not actually reduce emissions. Also, a leakage effect is one of other issues. So a carbon offset project might reduce emissions in one place, but increase them somewhere else. This is common in forest conservation programs, where protecting one area can lead to deforestation shifting to a different location. Also, another issue is the so-called perverse incentives. Some offset schemes create incentives to generate emissions first, only to be reduced later for financial benefit. This also happens in areas where governments or businesses create pollution just to earn credit by reducing it later. Those probably are the major issues why it's sometimes counterproductive.
Yeah. So let's talk about the effects of all this. Carbon credits are being adopted on a massive scale now, especially in voluntary carbon markets. So if these projects fail to deliver real emission reductions, what kind of impact could that have on global climate efforts?
Well, if large-scale carbon credit adoption fails to deliver real emission reductions, it could have many negative consequences. It undermines real emission reductions. If polluters rely on low-quality offset, they may delay actual decarbonization efforts in critical industries like energy, transportation, and manufacturing. Instead of investing in clean energy or efficiency improvements, companies use offset as a cheap alternative to business model change. Second, it also undermines market credibility. Public investors' trust in carbon market could collapse if large-scale offsets are found to be ineffective or fraudulent. Investors and consumers may lose faith in carbon markets. Another consequence could be weakening global climate goals. Offset alone won't meet net zero target. Even the IPCC has already warned that offset cannot replace deep emission cuts. Therefore, over-reliance on offset delays urgent actions needed to decarbonize industries, transport, and energy.
Yeah, so this is definitely a matter of concern. And another major concern raised in recent studies is the environmental integrity of carbon credits. Some reports are suggesting that maybe less than 16% actually represent genuine emission reductions. So what are the fundamental flaws in the current system that kind of allow these discrepancies to happen?
Well, because many projects lack of additionality, those projects funded by carbon credit do not actually provide real additional reductions. The second flaw could be the overestimation of carbon offsets. Many projects exaggerate the amount of carbon they remove or prevent being emitted. There are also double counting and the lack of transparency of carbon credits. The same emission reduction is claimed by multiple entities, for example, by both the selling country and the buying company. Another flaw is weak regulatory oversight. Many voluntary carbon markets lack rigorous oversight, allowing for low-quality, unverifiable credits. We have also seen that the market incentives also favor quantity over quality because the carbon credit market is profit-driven, leading to pressure to issue more credits rather than ensuring the integrity. Therefore, certification bodies may approve low-quality projects because they earn money per credit issued.
Okay, so let's look at this from an investor's perspective. Compared to traditional assets, carbon allowances and credits can be pretty complex. So how attractive are they as financial instruments for these investors?
Well, the carbon credit market is profit-driven, like most of the financial assets, as long as there's a strong long-term price appreciation, which you have seen in the compliance carbon markets. It shows significant price increases as governments tighten emission caps. For example, EU alone price surged from 25 euros per ton in 2020 to 19 euros in 2022, then over 100 euros in 2023, although it fell a little bit last year. In addition, carbon credits are aligned with ESG goals, making them attractive for impact factors and pension funds, green ETFs, because companies under pressure to meet net zero commitments are increasing demand. Not only for ESG, it's also used for portfolio diversification and inflation hedge, which makes them very attractive because carbon market often has a very low correlation with traditional financial products, whether stock markets or bond markets, so making them very attractive diversification instruments. Also, since carbon price increases with tighter regulations, so they can act as inflation hedge in decarbonizing economy.
All right. And when it comes to carbon offsets, we know that not all projects are created equal. So from an environmental standpoint, how challenging is it to enhance the value of these credits? And how do stakeholders decide which is more profitable? Protecting forests or, say, reducing emissions in beef production? How do people pick here?
Yeah, increasing the value of carbon offset, it is challenging because it requires both credibility and demand growth. First, this has to ensure environmental integrity. So if buyers doubt that the offset truly removes carbon dioxide, then they will pay less for low integrity credits. There's also supply-demand imbalance in carbon markets. The voluntary carbon market is oversaturated with cheap, low-quality offsets, but the demand for high-quality credit is still growing. So oversupply of low-cost, questionable offsets reduces market confidence and suppress price growth. Another challenge is one of the main challenges, the policy uncertainty and market fragmentation. Look, there's no single global standard leading to inconsistent pricing and low investor confidence. So back to the question for forest and beef markets. To decide which one is more profitable, investors and the policymakers must at least consider the carbon revenue potential and commodity revenue potential. So it looks like beef market may outcompete the forest offset in regions where strong beef demand. It seems the beef market is more profitable, but carbon pricing and consumer shifts could flip the equation in favor of forest within the next, say, 5 or 10 years. Because over time, carbon offset revenue will increase as demand rises and the carbon market matures, while beef markets face more environmental scrutiny.
All right. Coming off the back of what you just said about those low-quality offsets that are in the market, how can companies and regulators ensure that they're investing in truly impactful projects then?
Well, it's mainly due to the price-driven corporate behaviors. That is why the surging demand for carbon credit from major corporations looking to meet sustainability targets has created strong incentive for low-quality offset to flood the market. And not only the price-driven corporate behavior and also the lack of regulatory standardization and market oversight. So to avoid this low-quality offset, companies and the regulators should adopt stricter criteria and the market reforms. Companies should be required to, disclose the offset purchases, the quality, and climate impact. From government side, the government or regulators must step in to prevent greenwashing. For example, recently the EU is proposing a new rules to ban weak regulatory offsets from corporate net zero claims.
Okay, yes. So, Dr. Liu, before you go, we've talked a lot about the challenges of these things, but what's your take on the future of carbon crediting in the broader push for net zero emissions by mid-century?
Well, indeed, carbon credit is really a double-edged sword in fighting climate change. The key challenge is ensuring that the carbon credits are used responsibly as a last resort, not a substitute for real decarbonization. Carbon credits should play a secondary, not primary role in carbon action for fighting climate change. Government must regulate voluntary carbon markets to prevent greenwashing and corporate loopholes. From companies' side, they must focus on internal decarbonization first, using offset only for truly unavoidable emissions. And for those industries which have no immediate decarbonization solutions due to technological and infrastructure constraints. Along with carbon credit mechanism, we also need to focus on financing climate solutions in developing countries. High-quality carbon credit mechanism can channel finance to, for example, renewable energy and soil carbon projects in developing countries.
All right, well, a double-edged sword indeed. And as we move toward net zero goals, making sure these carbon offsets actually work will be critical. Dr. Liu, thanks so much for joining us today. It was great having you on.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Dr. Ruipeng Liu, Senior Lecturer for the Finance Group at Deakin Business School. Keep it here on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.